Autumn of 1942 proved cold and rainy in the Bryansk region. The forests, which had until recently been gold and crimson, quickly shed their leaves under blasts of the piercing wind. Dirt roads turned into impassable mud, and the first frosts were already coming at night. In these harsh conditions, deep in the Bryansk woods, operated the partisan detachment Avenger, under the command of the former railway worker Ivan Sergeyevich Kravtsov. The detachment counted about 80 people, men and women of different ages, united by one goal: to fight the German occupiers, disrupt their supply lines, and strike at communications. The partisans lived in dugouts, surviving on meager supplies and whatever they could obtain in nearby villages. Life was hard, dangerous, and full of deprivation, but no one thought of surrender. Before the war, Ivan Sergeyevich Kravtsov had worked as a locomotive fireman's assistant on the Bryansk Railway Division. He knew every kilometer of track, every passing loop, every bridge and tunnel. When the war began and the Germans occupied Bryansk, Kravtsov did not wait to be conscripted into labor for the occupiers. He went into the woods with several railway colleagues and organized a partisan detachment. His knowledge of the railway proved invaluable. Under his leadership, the partisans carried out several successful sabotage operations on the railroad. They blew sections of track, derailed enemy echelons carrying equipment and personnel, and mined bridges. Each such operation inflicted tangible damage on the Germans and boosted the partisans' morale. At the end of October 1942, an important message arrived at the Avenger Detachment's headquarters from a liaison in the district center. Reconnaissance reported that in a few days a large German echelon loaded with ammunition would pass along the railway that ran about 30 kilometers from the partisan camp. The train was traveling from west to east toward the front line near Stalingrad, where fierce battles were taking place at the time. The echelon consisted of more than 40 wagons loaded with shells, mines, cartridges, and explosives. The train's guard had been reinforced. Anti-aircraft guns and machine guns were mounted on flat cars at the head and tail of the formation. Several wagons carried German soldiers, around 150 men. The train was to pass through Krasny Lock station, where it would make a short stop to take on water for the locomotive. Kravtsov gathered the unit commanders for a meeting. In a cramped dugout lit by an oil lamp, several men bent over a map. The commander himself, his deputy Pyotr Andreevich Volkov, a former history teacher, the head of reconnaissance Nikolai Stepanovich Morozov, a former forester, and the demolition specialist Semyon Ivanovich Gromov, a former miner from Donbass. All of them experienced partisans who had been through many operations, listened intently. Kravtsov pointed to the train's route on the map and to the spot where the sabotage was proposed. "Comrades," he said, "we have a chance to deal the Germans a serious blow. This echelon is carrying ammunition to the front. If we destroy it, it will weaken the German supply to the forces at Stalingrad. Every shell that doesn't reach the front is a life saved for our fighters." Volkov, the deputy commander, looked thoughtfully at the map and said, "Ivan Sergeyevich, the task is difficult. The train is well guarded. If we try to blow the rails as usual, the Germans will open fire with the anti-aircraft guns and machine guns. We will suffer losses. Besides, if we simply derail the train, some of the ammunition might survive. The Germans will quickly restore traffic, transfer any intact ordnance to other wagons, and send it on. We need something more reliable." Kravtsov nodded. "I thought about that. A routine sabotage won't do here. We need another method, one that will disable the entire train and all the ammunition while avoiding a direct clash with the guards. I propose we act not by force, but by cunning." Morozov, the head of reconnaissance, raised his head. "What do you mean, Commander?" Kravtsov smiled. "I worked on the railway for 20 years. I know how locomotives are built, how brakes work, how a train is handled. And I know the weak points. There is a way to put the train out of action so that the Germans won't immediately understand what happened. No explosions, no shots, no noise, quiet and effective." Everyone present looked at the commander with interest. Gromov, the demolition expert, shook his head skeptically. "Ivan Sergeyevich, I have worked with explosives all my life. I can't imagine how you could disable an entire train without a blast. Explain." Kravtsov unfolded a more detailed map of the railway section and began to explain his plan. "Look," he said, pointing at the map. "The train goes from west to east. Here, about 20 kilometers from Krasny Lock station, the line descends fairly steeply, about 10 per mil, then begins to climb. The driver, handling a heavy formation, will accelerate on the downhill to gain momentum for the climb. Speed on the descent can reach 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. Now imagine what would happen if the train's brakes failed at that moment. The driver would be unable to control speed. The train would run away. On the climb it would slow, of course, but by then anything could happen. Derailment, collision with another train ahead, or mere failure of running gear from overload." Volkov listened carefully and began to grasp the commander's idea. "So you propose to put the train's braking system out of action, but how will we do that? We need to get to the train. It's guarded. And the braking system is complex. You can't just cut one hose and expect everything to fail." Kravtsov nodded. "Exactly. The train's braking system is pneumatic. It runs on compressed air. The locomotive's compressor generates pressure. The air runs through the main line across all the wagons and operates the brake shoes. If there is an air leak somewhere in the system, pressure drops and the brakes cease to work effectively. But you're right, simply damaging one hose is not enough. The system has safety margins and redundancies. We need to act more subtly." Morozov asked, "Ivan Sergeyevich, where exactly do you propose we interfere with the system? And, most importantly, how will we approach the train unnoticed?" Kravtsov smiled. "That's where knowledge of the timetable and the peculiarities of this section helps us. The train stops at Krasny Lock for a short spell, about 15 to 20 minutes, to take on water. The station is small. The guards will be concentrated mainly at the head and tail of the formation. The middle wagons will be less closely watched. Night, darkness, and the bustle of refueling. That's our chance. We will slip up to the train and do what needs to be done." Gromov frowned. "But what exactly will we do? What specific actions?" Kravtsov took a small notebook from his pocket with schematics drawn inside. "Look, the brake system has several key points. First, there are the aircocks between wagons. If they are slightly opened, there will be a slow air leak, not immediately noticeable but constant. Second, the brake cylinders on the wagons themselves. If you loosen the mountings or damage the seals, the effect will be the same. Third, and this is the most important, the main air reservoir on the locomotive. If we can get to it and install a small device that will gradually bleed off air, then after some time the system pressure will fall to a critical level. The brakes will fail just when the train is on that dangerous descent." Volkov nodded thoughtfully. "The plan is daring but feasible. However, there is a problem. How will we know the exact time the train will be on the descent? We need the device to act at the right moment, not earlier and not later." Kravtsov replied, "I calculated the distance from Krasny Lock to the start of the descent as 37 kilometers. The train travels at an average speed of about 40 kilometers per hour on this stretch. That means it will take roughly 50 to 55 minutes from the station to the descent. We will set the device so that it begins to act about 40 minutes after the train departs the station. By the time it reaches the slope, the pressure in the brake system will have fallen so that the driver can no longer brake effectively." Gromov asked, "What kind of device is it? Do we have anything suitable?" Kravtsov smiled. "The device is simple. We'll need a clockwork mechanism. We can take one from an alarm clock or from those German watches we captured last month. We'll attach a small valve to the mechanism that will open after a set time. The valve will be installed on the air main. When it opens, an air leak will begin, gradual but inevitable. The driver will notice the pressure drop but won't immediately understand the cause. He will try to compensate by running the compressor harder, but on the descent, when active braking is required, the compressor won't have time to restore pressure. The brakes will fail." Everyone present appreciated the elegance of the plan. Morozov said, "All right, the plan is clear. Now the details. Who will go on the operation? How many people do we need? How will we get to the station unnoticed?" Kravtsov replied, "The team should be small, 5 or 6 people. No more, so we don't attract attention. I need people who know the railway, can work quickly and silently, and don't panic in dangerous situations. I'll go myself. I can't be left out. I must install the device on the locomotive. I'll take Gromov with me, he's handy and quick thinking. We'll need Morozov. He knows the area and will guide us to the station and back. And 2 or 3 more fighters for cover and assistance. Volkov said, I'll go too. You are my commander, but I can't let you take such a risk alone. If something goes wrong, you'll need help. Kravtsov looked at his deputy and nodded. All right, Pyotr Andreevich, you'll come as well. We'll take Sasha Korolyov. He's young but capable, a good shooter and fearless. And Maria Ivanovna Sokolova. She worked as a nurse at the station. She knows the layout of the service buildings and can lead us in. Volkov was surprised. Maria Ivanovna? But she's a woman over 40. Isn't that too dangerous? Kravtsov shook his head. Maria Ivanovna is one of our most reliable fighters. She knows the station like the back of her hand. Besides, a woman at the station won't arouse suspicion. The Germans are used to seeing local people working on the railway. The plan was approved. Preparations began. Gromov set to work making the air bleeding device. He took apart an old alarm clock, extracted the clockwork, and adapted it to a small valve he fashioned from a captured German gas mask filter. The mechanism was set so that 40 minutes after the spring was wound, it would release a lever that opened the valve. The whole device was the size of a small box and could be hidden under clothing. Gromov tested the mechanism several times to ensure its precision. Ivan Sergeyevich, he reported, the device is ready. It works like clockwork, literally. Wind the spring, install it on the main, and after 40 minutes the air leak will begin. Morozov carried out reconnaissance along the route. He and 2 fighters walked from the partisan camp to the outskirts of Krasny Lock station, studying the approaches, identifying hiding places, and marking retreat routes. The station was 30 kilometers from the camp. They would have to travel through forests and fields, avoiding roads and settlements. Morozov drew a detailed map of the route, noted dangerous spots where German patrols or policemen might be, and learned the train timetable, guard shift times, and locations of German posts. All this information was carefully recorded and reported to the commander. Kravtsov reviewed the intelligence and was satisfied. Good work, Nikolai Stepanovich. Now we know where we're going and what to expect. Maria Ivanovna Sokolova was a woman of remarkable fate. Before the war, she had worked as a nurse at Krasny Lock station. She lived in a small house near the station with her husband, a railway worker, and 2 sons. When the war began, the elder son went to the front and died near Vyazma in the autumn of 1941. The younger was only 16 but also eager to fight. Maria Ivanovna's husband worked on the railway under German supervision. There was no choice. The Germans mobilized all railway workers. But secretly he helped the partisans, passing information about echelon movements, cargoes, and German plans. In the spring of 1942, a collaborator denounced him. The Germans arrested Maria Ivanovna's husband, tortured him, and then shot him in front of the whole station as a warning to others. After that, Maria Ivanovna took her younger son and went into the forest to join the partisans. In the Avenger detachment, she became indispensable. She treated the wounded, cared for the sick, helped in the kitchen, and mended clothes. Most importantly, she acted as a courier. Because she knew the area and the people well, she could move through villages, gather information, and deliver messages without arousing suspicion. The Germans and policemen saw her as an ordinary middle-aged peasant woman going about her business. No one suspected that under her scarf and apron she hid important dispatches and sometimes weapons. Her son Alexei became one of the detachment's best scouts. He was only 17 but brave, resourceful, and a good shot. Maria Ivanovna was proud of him. But every time he left on a mission, her heart tightened with fear. She had already lost 1 son and her husband. To lose Alexei would be unbearable. When Kravtsov informed Maria Ivanovna about the upcoming operation, she agreed without hesitation. Ivan Sergeyevich, she said, I know Krasny Lock station better than my own home. I worked there 15 years. I know every corner, every building, every person. I will lead you, show where to hide, and how to approach the tracks unnoticed. The Germans know me by sight. I'll say I came to visit acquaintances or buy something. They won't suspect me. Kravtsov nodded. Thank you, Maria Ivanovna. You will help us greatly. But remember, this is a dangerous operation. If anything goes wrong, the Germans will shoot without warning. Are you sure you want to go? Maria Ivanovna looked the commander firmly in the eye. I lost my husband and son to those damned fascists. If I can take revenge and help our victory, I will go to the ends of the earth. On the evening before the operation, Kravtsov gathered the whole group for a final briefing. 6 people sat in the dugout. The commander himself, Volkov, Morozov, Gromov, young Sasha Korolyov, and Maria Ivanovna. Kravtsov spread the map on the table and explained the plan once more. We depart tonight at 2 a.m. We'll follow the route Morozov scouted through the forest. 30 kilometers to the station, 6 to 7 hours, walk accounting for stops and precautions. We should reach the station by dawn, around 9 a.m. During the day, we'll hide in the shelter Morozov prepared. The train should arrive at the station around 11 p.m., according to our intelligence. We wait for darkness, wait for the train, and then act. Volkov asked, Ivan Sergeyevich, what if the train is delayed, or doesn't come at all, or comes earlier? Kravtsov answered, our reconnaissance checked the information from several sources. The train runs on schedule. The Germans are very punctual about that. But if anything changes, we'll act according to the situation. In the worst case, we'll postpone the operation and return to camp. We won't take unnecessary risks. Gromov showed the device he had made. Here it is, the clockwork, the valve, the mount. Everything's checked and works. Kravtsov took the device in his hands, examined it, wound it, and checked the mechanism. Yes, this. Exactly what we need. I know where the main airline is on the locomotive. Installation will take 3 to 4 minutes, tops. The main thing is to reach the locomotive unnoticed. Morozov unfolded his route map and showed it. Look, here's our path. The first 10 kilometers we go through the forest. That's safe. There are no Germans here. Then we come out near the village of Berezovka. We must be careful there. The village has a police post with 5 or 6 policemen. We'll bypass the village across the field. Then back into the forest for about 15 kilometers. After that, a small swamp, but you need to know where to cross or you'll get stuck. I know a trail through the swamp. The last 5 kilometers are forest again. We'll approach the station from the north. There's an old abandoned shed where we'll hide during the day. They studied the map closely, memorized landmarks, and asked clarifying questions. Maria Ivanovna said, when we reach the station, I'll go first, take a look, learn the situation, find where the Germans and their posts are, then return and report. If everything is calm, we'll wait for the train. When the train arrives and water is being taken on, I'll go back to the station to distract the Germans if needed. I'll say I'm looking for someone or trying to sell something. The Germans are used to locals hovering around the station, trying to trade with the soldiers. Kravtsov nodded approvingly. Good, Maria Ivanovna, but be careful. If you feel danger, leave immediately. We don't want to risk you. Maria Ivanovna smiled. Don't worry, Ivan Sergeyevich, this isn't my first time doing this work. I know how to behave. Sasha Korolyov, the youngest in the group, asked, what if the Germans see us? If shooting starts, what will we do? Kravtsov looked at the young man seriously. Sasha, our task is to avoid shooting at all costs. We are not going to fight, we're conducting a sabotage. Quiet, unnoticed, effective. If shooting starts, the operation is ruined and we'll have to run for our lives. So everyone must be extremely careful, alert, disciplined. No unnecessary movements, no noise, no improvisation. We act strictly according to plan. We'll have weapons, but only for self-defense as a last resort. Understood. Sasha nodded. Understood, Comrade Commander. The others confirmed they understood as well. Kravtsov continued with duty assignments. Morozov leads the group along the route. He knows the way. Gromov and I will install the device on the locomotive. Volkov and Sasha will provide cover, watch the situation, and warn of danger. Maria Ivanovna will handle liaison and reconnaissance at the station. Everyone knows their role and is responsible for their sector. We act as a single team. After installing the device, we will leave the station quickly the same way we came and return to camp. Everything must go fast and clean. They all nodded, ready. The atmosphere was tense, but everyone understood the mission's importance. A chance to deal the Germans a serious blow, disrupt ammo supplies to the front, and help our troops at Stalingrad. After the briefing, the fighters dispersed to prepare, checked their weapons, packed rucksacks, and dressed warmer. The night promised to be cold. Kravtsov checked Gromov's device once more, wound the clockwork, and tested the valve. Everything was in order. He carefully packed the device into a small pouch and placed it in his rucksack. Volkov came up to him quietly. Ivan Sergeyevich, I keep thinking, what if something goes wrong? What if the device doesn't work or works at the wrong time? Kravtsov looked at his deputy. Pyotr Andreevich, every operation carries risk, but we did everything possible to minimize it. The plan is thought out, the device tested, the people reliable. The rest is in fate's hands. We must believe in success. At 2 a.m., the group left the partisan camp. The night was dark and starless. A cold drizzle was falling, which was good. In such weather, German patrols preferred to sit in warm rooms rather than roam the woods. Morozov led the way, followed by Kravtsov, Gromov, Volkov, Sasha Korolyov, and Maria Ivanovna. They all wore dark clothes and soot-darkened faces so they would not show in the dark. Weapons were at hand, submachine guns, pistols, grenades, though everyone hoped they would not need them. They walked silently and carefully, making as little noise as possible. The forest was quiet. Only the occasional rustle of nocturnal animals and the sound of rain on the leaves broke the silence. The first 10 kilometers passed without incident. Morozov confidently guided the group along familiar trails, avoiding dangerous spots where German ambushes or mines could be. They marched single file, staying close so no one would get lost in the dark. Kravtsov walked second, right behind Morozov, watching the way and listening closely. His long experience as a railwayman and partisan told him things were going well for now. Gromov followed the commander, carrying the precious device in his rucksack. He guarded it like the apple of his eye, knowing that the success of the whole operation depended on that little box. Volkov and Sasha closed the column, constantly looking back to check no one followed. Maria Ivanovna walked in the middle, surprising everyone with her endurance. Despite her age, she kept up and made no complaints. When they neared the village of Berezovka, Morozov stopped the group and signaled absolute silence. The village lay a kilometer to the right of their route, but on such a still night sounds carried far. Morozov led the group around it across the field. They had to traverse open ground, dangerous, but there was no other way. Everyone crouched low, almost crawling, trying to blend with the earth. The rain grew heavier, which favored the partisans. In such weather, visibility was poor, and even if a German patrol or policeman peered out from the village, they would be unlikely to notice anything. The detour took about an hour. At last, the group re-entered the forest, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. I understand, Ivan Sergeyevich, this isn't my first time at this work. I'll be careful. They were silent for a moment. Then Maria Ivanovna said, You know, I keep thinking about my husband. He helped the partisans too, and they killed him. Now I continue his work. This is my revenge on the fascists. This is my war. The day dragged slowly into evening. The partisans stood watch at the station in shifts. The others rested, dozed, and prepared for the upcoming operation. Everyone understood that the most responsible and dangerous part of the mission lay ahead. The nervous tension grew, although no one showed it. These were seasoned fighters, hardened by battles and sabotage. Still, every new operation carried its own risks, and nothing could ever be guaranteed 100%. Kravtsov periodically approached the observation slits, looked at the station, studied the situation, and memorized details. He watched German soldiers changing guard, walking the platform, and checking papers of the rare passengers. Everything was ordinary, routine. The Germans clearly did not expect trouble. Around 6 o'clock in the evening it began to grow dark. Autumn days were short, and by 7 it was already completely dark. Kravtsov gathered everyone for a final briefing before departure. "Comrades," he said quietly, "in an hour Maria Ivanovna will go on reconnaissance. She will inspect the station, learn the situation, find out when the train is expected. We wait here. When she returns and reports that everything is in order, we will prepare to act. According to our information, the train should arrive around 11 o'clock in the evening. The water stop takes 15 to 20 minutes. That is our